What is up, everybody? Welcome to another live Pendergast podcast on this beautiful Friday afternoon or evening, wherever you are in the world. And ladies and gentlemen, it's an absolute honor today to sit down with my friend and the absolute legend, Brian Tuna Mullins, even though he said he wasn't. Yes, you are. But before we get into this podcast, this episode is sponsored by Next Level Financial. Take control of your financial future. Get your complimentary financial analysis today by Seth Starnes. Seth is absolutely amazing human being. He's a racer, a suspension. He has another business called Next Level Suspension. Many of you know who he is. He knows the ins and the outs of what it takes to stay racing and all that good stuff. So hit him up, give him a call, and get all that stuff sorted out to keep you on the track. And, you know, another thing I tell everybody, Brian, don't buy an off-the-rack suit. If you have one, give it to one of your friends or make a backpack out of it or something, right? What you need is a custom suit. It makes the world of a difference. I've had this spill 100 million times. BisonTrack.com. Get you a fully custom suit. You listening, you deserve it. Treat yourself, love yourself, get a custom suit that's tailored, measured specifically for you. It makes a world of a difference. All you got to do is go back and watch my 300 and something episodes of podcast. Every single friend I've had on here will tell you the same thing. Custom is the only way to go in the leather game. Am I right, Brian?
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, Brian Tuna Mullins, welcome to the podcast, bro.
How you doing, man?
Good. I've had a busy day so far. Got up this morning. My wife went to work. Fridays are usually my day off, so son goes to school. I get my laundry done, vacuum. I'm Mr. Mom when everybody's gone, right? I got the apron on, vacuuming, got the headphones in, jamming, chasing the puppy around, peeing all over the place, which I just got done doing right before we went live. So yeah, it's went and ate lunch with my son. That's when I had to hit you up and was like, bro, I'll be home in 15 minutes. Because I went and ate some lunch with him. I try to on Fridays. Go eat lunch either with my wife or my son. I alternate, and it's funny because them two argue about it. He's like, well, he ate with you last week, he's gonna come eat with me this week, and I'm like, I feel so loved, right?
One-on-one time is important, man.
It listen, first and foremost, and I tell everybody this, family is the most important thing, 100%. So you gotta always put them first way before I put myself, right?
Right.
So yeah, but the first one's to see in the morning, the last one's to see before you close your eyes.
There you go.
So Brian, dude.
Good philosophy.
Appreciate it, man. Tell us your journey, bro. How did it all start? Where did it all start?
Oh man, from like the beginning?
From the little PW50 underneath the Christmas tree.
Man, we never had that. I never had a P-Dub. We didn't have anything. We were, I tell people that I grew up poor, and like, we grew up poor, man. I think I might have had one new bicycle when I was a kid. So my first experience on any sort of motorcycle, I was 20. I was 20 years old, and I had been leaving. No, I take that back. I was 19. I was leaving high school and working part-time at this go-kart shop called Galaxy Karts and Parts. And I would do some little stuff. I would watch the counter for him. And then we got a relationship, and I started working the shop for him on Saturdays when he was out of town or something. And my first experience on a motorcycle was learning to ride a CR250 on a gravel road next to the shop. And I didn't know how to ride. I didn't know how to do anything. I was like looking up starting procedures in a manual that we had at the shop, and didn't know how to work a clutch. Didn't know how to where the choke was, anything, man. And I wrecked that bike. I'm not kidding, like 60 times in one day. And I had to call my girlfriend at the time to pick me up because I couldn't walk. Like, I didn't have a helmet, no gear, no nothing. I didn't know how to ride. And I wrecked that customer's bike so many times, and then had to pay to fix it. And then I fell in love with bikes and decided I was going to race them, and started doing some. I think I traded all of my go-kart racing gear and my cart and everything for for a CR250. It was a 96 CR250 with the pink and yellow graphics and steel frame. And I rode it one time out in the woods. And my second time riding that thing was an arena cross race. and I didn't do good. And I never did good. I raced arena cross for 2 years. And God, I sucked. And gave up on that, got a street bike. My first street bike was a 1969 Suzuki T350, two-stroke, twin-cylinder. And for about 6 months, that's all I had. I didn't have a car. I rode that bike back and forth to work every day. And I was working third shift, and we got into the fall, and I was like layering up to ride to work. And at that point, I was able to save up a little money and got a better bike. And then my better bike was a Katana. It was a 95 600 Katana, and riding on the back roads a whole bunch, doing reckless shit, and met up with some other guys on back roads, and they were riding much nicer bikes, and they got in the track days. We'd meet up on weekends and stuff. And they got in the track days, so I went and did a track day on my Katana. That's where my nickname comes from. Everybody calls me Tuna. It's from Can of Tuna. Everybody at this track day kept calling me Can of Tuna, Can of Tuna. And by the end of my first track day, I got bumped up to expert on this Katana. And man, I was there with, no tire warmers. I didn't have a stand. I didn't know what any of that was.
Oh, you had a stand. It was a kickstand.
Yeah, I had a kickstand. Yeah, exactly. And I think the tires that were on the bike, a dude on the 13X on the Wira forums, gave them to me. He's like, man, I'll send you a set of tires that he spooned off an SV or something, a set of takeoffs. And I had an absolute blast. And that was in October of 08. And then my next time on the track was getting my race license in February down at Jennings GP with the Wira race school. And then I started racing, man, and it's been a whirlwind ever since. Took over my life for the better, got me out of trouble. I used to get in a ton of trouble. And so motorcycles helped me redirect my life. And that's it, man.
It was very story.
It was quick. It was aggressive. It was careless and crazy. And, here I am. I think I've been racing, I don't know, since 09. So a long time.
It's awesome. Everybody, this is what I love about our motorcycle sport, man. Everybody has their own beautiful journey on how they got into it, whether it's at a young age or, 19 or 20 or sometimes even later than that. The point is you got into them, right? And I'm a firm believer that our motorcycle sport, they pick you. You don't pick bikes, right? Because you'll have guys that will go out and buy a bike and lay it over, and then they sell it and they don't ever want to ride again. The ones that deeply fall in love with it and have a deep passion for it, give everything to it, such as yourself and me and many other people. So yeah, man, that's freaking awesome. I remember when I first started riding my first street bike, I'll say, in high school. I had a buddy, I met a buddy, his name's Todd. That's the first bike he had, was a Katana. And I mean, I was fairly new to the street scene, right? Dirt bike scene I knew real well, but the street, not so much. And everybody kept saying, man, can of tuna. And I'm like, why does everybody keep talking about this can of tuna? I like tuna, but every time I come around, everybody's can of tuna. And Todd's like, yeah, man, this is my Katana, but everybody calls it a can of tuna. And I was like, wow, it's a beautiful looking bike, right? I didn't know. So yeah, and he was fast on that thing. I'll give it to him.
Well, if you don't know any better, I mean, I still got a soft spot for a Katana because when the apocalypse comes, everybody's going to be riding around on DR 650s and Katanas, man. Because that's their big game. But it's not a performance bike, but it was fun. Every year on Facebook, pictures from my first track day will post up, and I'm like, holy shit! God, it was an ugly bike, and the way I was riding it, and it was wild. But everybody starts somewhere, man. I try to help out as many people as I can get into it because it's hard. I mean, if you don't if you happen into it and fall in love with it, it's difficult if you're not prepared for all the costs and the logistics of it, and it's hard. I had a ton of help getting started. So I try to help as many people as I can.
Yeah, I love it, man. I try to introduce new people to the sport too, as well, right? It helps our sport grow too, as well. And you're right. You know, if you wanted to do track days or get into racing or club racing or just ride and meet people to ride, there's like no, you can't go to your local dealership because they don't advertise anything like that, right? Which they should. I'm a firm believer that all dealerships should advertise, hey, take this safety course, right? Get you a full leathers, get you the proper gear. These are local tracks, right? These are the websites. Get in touch with so and so to help grow the sport. It's a big deal. Like you don't. I didn't know nobody. I just bought the bike because I wanted the bike, right? And then I started meeting people, and yeah, the whole thing snowballed from there.
Yeah, I didn't know it was a thing. That's it. Those guys were trying to convince me. They're like, yeah, the way we ride on back roads, you can do that, but instead of running from cops, like you get rewarded for going fast. And I think when I bought my first new bike, my only new bike, I think it was either Honda or Suzuki had some advertisements where like when you bought a bike, you got a track day with like Nesba or something, whatever it was back then. And I thought that was cool. And I don't think it's just the dealerships or just the manufacturers. I mean, these track day orgs could set up at pamphlets and information probably at any motorcycle shop across the country, because it's symbiotic. If they sell a bike and it gets someone in the track days, but fuck, they're gonna wreck it. They're gonna need parts. They're gonna come back, and if there's a support system there, then that's where they're gonna keep going. And I've never found that at any shop. I'm here in Cincinnati, and AFJ Race Shop is like a small business, and back in the day, not so much anymore, but they used to do, those guys at AFJ Asphalt Junkies, they would schedule rides, and I was part of the group. And I think we rented out Grattan one time and had our own track day, and we're really heavy into the bike scene, going to local bike shows and bike nights and handing out information and trying to get people into racing. And I think it worked, man. We had a huge group for probably 10 years. And then, everybody, it was like attrition. Everybody kind of grew out of it, or they started doing other stuff. And man, I think I'm the only one left that's still racing from that time. But other guys have gone on and done awesome things, just, not racing anymore.
Yeah. And you're right. People, and I'm sure there is mom and dad small shops out there that do promote it, but if I feel like like you said, if the majority of the local dealerships around the world, at least in the US, would promote it, it would help grow the sport. And then people wouldn't, I guess, when I first got into it, it was an uncomfortableness because I had no idea what I was getting myself into, right? Like the do's, the don'ts, the safety wire. Man, I had no idea because nobody said any of that. I went to my first track day and I didn't have none of that. No headlights taped up. I have none of that. They looked at me. They're like, nah, dude, you got to do this and this and this. And I was like, well, thank you. Right. Yeah, obviously took care of it and ended up letting me go out. So you're right. It's all learning experience and the beautiful people you meet in the paddock that pitch in a hand and help. Cause I had no idea, I had a bunch of people. I was like, dude, this is my first track day. My name's Simcoe. I'm from Virginia. I'm going to MMI. I'm trying to get this done, and all hands were on deck. People I didn't even know. Obviously they come up and they pretty much did it for me. I just watched. Yeah. It was absolutely amazing, man. Our community's freaking proper mega, as I always say, right? We actually got a couple comments coming in. Brian, one is from my man Andreas, bro. What is up? He says, greetings, good people. You, my friend, is proper mega. And of course, we got, I say this all the time. If you listen to my podcast, at the end, I give Ghetto Customs always a shout out. My man, Chris Parrish, he says, sup, sexy bitches. You, my friend. I love it. Kelly,
have you interviewed Chris?
Yeah, I have. Him and Beth. Yes, I did. It was like 2 hours. We were taking shots of shots on the podcast, all that, man. Yeah, we had a proper mega good time. We need to run it back and sit down, Chris, and do that part too. So Kelly Nuss says, I first met Tuna in 2010 at Nashville Super Speedway. Great guy and always willing to lend a hand or give great advice. See you at the track this will. Thanks for watching, Kelly.
Hey, Kelly. And his son races now too. So they're racing together. which is super cool.
Love it, man. I love it. And then of course, freaking the legend Kevin Horney, bro. What is up? He says Tuna. Yeah, he's awesome. I first
Kevin,
met. Go ahead, Tuna.
I was going to say Kevin helped us out at Mid Ohio when we were riding the struggle bus. No, it wasn't Mid Ohio. It was Road America. He was like the only other guy out on a Triumph, and man, I sucked so bad on that bike. And he shared his data with us, and I was like, that's when we realized their transmission had a different ratio, and we could see where he was picking up the throttle and whatnot. And I think that helped me qualify at Road America, which is these days is a feat in itself. So thanks, Kevin.
Absolutely. I met Kevin on Facebook. I watched one of his videos early in the podcast days, and yeah, that's where our relationship started out. So yeah, again, our beautiful people and our beautiful circus. I always call it our beautiful circus, right? And within every circus, we always have those clowns, and we love them too, right? You got to. So
yeah, that's a fact. I've been one of those clowns many times.
We all still kind of are, right? Let's just be honest with ourselves. We're still that clown when we show up to the paddock, because we're excited to be there, because we know we're meeting our family, right? That we ain't seen in a couple months, and it's hugs and this, right? And then of course it's business, so for sure.
Oh yeah.
David Faulkner, I hope I said that right, Faulkner. I first met Tuna through Asphalt Junkies. First time I met him was at Edgewater Sports Park. We raced quarter mile back-to-back grudge races 5 or 6 times. He was on a 600 and I was on a 750. He smoked me every time.
That's awesome. I've become pretty good friends with David Matthew Faulkner. We actually did some property get together, and I didn't realize that's when we first met. And I remember that. They used to do a Thursday night lights down at Edgewater, the local drag strip. And man, we would have, a couple hundred bikes show up and hang out. It was kind of it was like Fast and the Furious vibe. But yeah, I don't even remember what bike I was riding back then. Probably a GSXR 600. That was a good time. It was a blast.
Yeah, we used to do that, except for we used to do in Phoenix. The big thing in Phoenix when I was out there in 99, 2000 was roll-ons. You'd go out with a group of 50. You'd always have a leader. He'd turn around and point to 2 bikes. You pull forward, second gear, whatever, and then the next 2 people. And yeah, that was the big thing out there at the time. Drag race. I've done that some. There was a track not too far from here, but they closed it down. They're actually in the midst of reopening it. So yeah, I have to go down there and hang out with the boys. And then we got Jace Haskew. Man, I hope I didn't murder that. I'm not very good with pronouncing names sometimes. Big Dog Tuna. It's a fact.
Jace, we're doing some wheeling and dealing. He's going to end up on a big pig of an SB1000 with the rest of us idiots a couple times this year. He was going to lease one, and I'm like, shit, man, why don't I just put one together and you can own it? And he goes, yep, got this GSXR and, wheeling and dealing. And a little bit later, I actually got it right here, prepping it for him. So another hooligan up there.
Yes. And Jace is actually, Jace, you're part of the herd, my friend. Congratulations. He's a bison rider too as well. So my man, love it. Mark Stork says this Tuna looks a lot like a scuffy guy I hauled bikes all over the southeast for recently.
Yeah, he did. We did some wheeling and dealing. Mark's always wheeling and dealing, and he hauled an SB1000 down to the Pensacola area for me and traded it for 2 CR85s, one a flat tracker, one dirt bike for my kids from another racer dad who's I don't think his kids raced in probably 10 years, but yeah, part of that big community, right?
Absolutely it is. And then Terry actually has a question for you. Oh, there you go. I already had it up. Do you have a particular technique for hard braking into a turn?
Brake as little as possible to make the turn effectively, I guess, man. It all depends on the turn, whether it's sweeping radius or if it's a 90 or the speed of the turn. But no, try to make it through the turn and gain ground on the guy in front of you. That's about it, man.
Just don't use your brakes. That's it. Just don't use the brake.
Skip that turn altogether. I do some coaching up at Mid Ohio, and it's really hard to coach, man. It's so hard. And I can give advice, but each rider is doing something a little different. Like, I'm really not a great coach. Sorry, Mark. But yeah, I never have real good advice, man. I can't remember turn numbers. I don't know what gear I'm in particular points of the track. Like, until I was looking at data the past couple years, like, I'm like, yeah, man, I'm in fourth, 100% throttle. And they're like, yeah, you're in third at 80% throttle. I'm like, oh, shit. I don't know. I don't. Terrible advice.
I love it. I love it. Andrea says, hey, man, I'm here for the SV1000 content. LOL. Okay, we're going to get into that here in just a second. And then, of course, dude, Josh, what is up? He says, what's up, Tuna? Yeah.
What's up, Josh?
So Josh actually was on Pin to Gas at the very beginning of us actually interviewing our friends in the sport.
Nice.
Actually, it was an honor to actually meet Josh at Jersey this year. So, yeah.
Hell yeah. Josh is a good dude.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, Josh is a good dude. I think I raced him on 600s like a million years ago, and then he started racing 1000s, and then Moto America, and then we end up, Jamie Doherty does both of our suspension, and I think him and Jamie became pretty close. And now me and Jamie are pretty close. And again, big community.
Oh, it's a beautiful community. So, when me and you had recently talked, you was telling me about this whole rental program with the Suzukis, the Super Hooligans, and all that good stuff in Moto America. So let's talk about that. Where did this idea come up, and tell everybody what it is? And
well, so I ran Super Sport the last 2 years, or tried to, on a Triumph. And, I raced AMA Pro back in like 13, 14, maybe a little in 15, and then stopped and kind of focused on some car racing. I was racing dirt late models at the time. And I was still racing bikes, but doing endurance. And so most of my racing had been focused on endurance up until like 2022, maybe. And back in the day, I was racing a $3,500 club bike and could run mid-pack and Super Sport. But now Super Sport has grown tremendously. It's premier, it's top deck, there's top riders, there's a ton of money, cost a ton of money. And I wasn't having fun. The last 2 years I enjoyed building the bike, making the industry connections to make that happen, and traveling to the races. But really my results sucked. I didn't mesh on the bike, and didn't have a whole lot of fun. So we were at Mid Ohio, and we were pitted next to a bunch of Super Hooligans. And I'm looking around at their bikes, and they're all fucking out there drinking beer in their underwear and shit. And I'm like, this is where we belong. These are my peoples.
Yeah, my peoples.
And I ended up talking with Danny Dominguez and Paul Mitchell, and they were on SV1000. And I'm like, what a pig of a bike. Like, why in the hell would someone run an SV1000? And basically, both of those guys were like, well, it's the cheapest option. You can get out here, you can qualify, make the show. They're not trying to impress anybody. They're traveling together with their family, just trying to have a good time. And I'm like, shit, that's what I need. I need back to basics. I need a bike that doesn't have auto blip and all this fucking data. Like, I don't want that. I can't focus on that. It's not my riding style. So, we had the idea, and while we were there, I was Jamie Doherty. I was talking with him. I'm like, look, man, we'll pull the Super Sport bodywork and stuff off. We'll put bars on my Triumph, and you can run it at COTA. And because he already had an expert race license, and he's like, hell yeah. So him and his wife, his family, they had a little meeting. They decided on it. And I was talking to my buddy Greg Reisinger, who I've ridden on his endurance team for the last few years. And Greg's like, yeah, that sounds awesome. And I'm like, Greg, I've got an SV1000 in the garage. It's a street bike, but you can ride it. I'm like, take it to your house, prep it, and you can ride it at COTA. So both of those guys popped their super hooligan cherry at Coda, and I went with them. You know, we traveled down there, and I worked as crew for the weekend. And Greg, and I'm not kidding, man. Greg's a good rider. Like, if you're faster than Greg, you're pretty fast. You're pretty quick. But Greg is he's not a pointy end guy, and that's great. I'm not, in this case, I'm not either. But Greg qualified at Coda. He was the last qualifier on a stock SV1000. It had a shock, and it had Chris's bodywork. Other than that, I don't even know if it had steel braided lines in the front. It was stock suspension in the front, no quick shifter, no power commander. I think it had a paper air filter. Like, the bike probably made 90 horsepower, and he qualified. And I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, Greg can qualify on this garbage. Like, I bought that bike for $500. I got it out of a storage bin. So that weekend I sold that bike to Greg for $1,600. So right there, cheapest Moto America bike in history. Like, you cannot get cheaper than that. You probably couldn't replicate it. So the whole time we're there, I'm like, Greg qualified. This is crazy. I was like, I'm going to sell this Triumph, and I'm going to buy 10 SV1000s, because, you know, the SV1000 was underdeveloped. The only time anyone really raced him was in Moto ST back in like 04, 05. And even then, you couldn't do a whole lot to them. And so people were just putting suspension and exhaust on them and racing them. And, you know, I'm sure there were probably a couple guys after Moto ST that did some superbike builds, but they're not really out there. And so I started searching. And at this point, since Coda, I've probably bought and sold 10 SV1000s. And right now, I'm building four Moto America. One for myself that I'm doing as much as I can, you know, pushing the limits of what they'll allow. And another one will be a similar build, and then 2 basic ones. And I'm going to have them available for guys like Greg and Jamie that just want to go as a bucket list and try to fulfill a dream, you know. And we're going to do rentals, and on the basic builds, like what Jace is getting, like even that, Jace wrote me, he was talking about leasing one. We worked out a deal to where he's just going to own one. And so that became like a commission build. And the quotes I have so far that I think we can do this at, I think one of the basic builds, man, I could get a guy on, and again, full suspension, exhaust, race body work, prepped, ready to go, quick shifter. Like, I'm thinking like, man, like $1,800 for the weekend. Oh. And I'll transport it. It'll have stands. It'll have half a tank of fuel, tires that you can, you know, scrubs that you can go do practice on, and a generator for hot pit and everything. Like, full blown, show up with your gear and a buddy and race a Moto America around and fucking have a good time. Bring your own beer. And then even like the really good bike, which, as you can imagine, any development on these, like we're doing. Chris Parrish designed all the bodywork. You know, we got a big aero tail and an aero fender, and he made a huge oversized Ram airbox, because these poor SV1000s use the same dimensional airbox as the 650. And when you build a 650, it needs more air. So we knew right away that was bullshit. So yeah, right.
That's going to be an issue.
Yeah, that's going to be an issue. And then even the race systems back in the day, the rear head pipe has 4 bends in the first 6 inches. So like the rear cylinder can't flow. So Kevin Drum at Drummer Exhaust in North Carolina is doing a rear head pipe. And I think at this point, he's making some collectors and mid pipes as well. And you can't buy a 2-in-1 system for that bike off the shelf anywhere. They don't make them. Company called Lextech makes a 2-in-2 system, a dual exhaust system over in Europe. So we got Greg on, we got Kevin doing the exhaust. Chris did the bodywork and airbox and everything. Jamie Doherty at DMR is doing all the suspension. I'm working with Blair with SB Racing Parts, who's been in the game for a long time. And him and Fred at Yo-Yo-Dyne directly. They never made a slipper clutch for these bikes. So I've got a prototype sitting here that I've test fit a couple of times. We're going to have slippers for these bikes. I got with a Chinese manufacturing plant that is producing SB650 and SB1000 tank covers. because, these bikes are 20 years old. All the tanks are beat to shit. And if we can put a tank cover on it and it looks good, it'll help for crash protection, and it'll help utilize some of these junk tanks laying around. So I've got that accomplished. Working with Edmund at Dekine Motorsports, and he's 3D printing ram air intakes for these. He's 3D printing block off plates and fairing stays and a bunch of stuff to lose some weight on the bikes. And he's got some really cool designs. I've made a couple of Facebook reels recently that are pretty damn funny, but has some of his designs kind of featured on that. And then Vinny DeVita is a name that's kind of been lost in the game for a while. He's a Florida guy. He's done some engine builds for me in the past, like customer stuff through my shop. And I hit him up and I'm like, we were reaching out to people to do engine builds on these, and like adjustable cam sprockets aren't available. Tons of parts are very similar to the TL1000, but not the same. So like we can't use the cams. In Super Hooligans, basically the cylinder head up is free. You can do whatever the hell you want. And it's been really difficult to find these parts because these bikes have been sitting in warehouses and garages stagnant for the last 10 years. So we got a bunch of industry guys, not, I'm employing them, I'm paying them. They're not doing anything for free, but I'm racking my brain to get all this done because we want to have a good time. The team name that we've come up with, Super Fooligans. And, that shows like, all right, Super Fooligans, we're here to fool around. We're going to have a good time. But like, we're not interested in being the brunt of any jokes. Like the bikes are going to be well prepped. And I think they're going to surprise some people. I'm talking with a couple of guys that are way faster than me about doing a lease, some twins riders, specifically because, the twins aren't going to Mid-Ohio. Mid-Ohio is a favorite track. And that's just one. There's another round that they're not running at that the Hooligans are. So I think we're going to get a couple quick guys on these for a round or two, and people are going to be impressed because it's not that the bikes aren't capable, even though they're old and throwaway bikes. They were just never developed. So there's potential to unlock if you got the time and are stupid enough to do it, and I am. And I think it's going to be a blast, man. I think we're going to show up, and John, our buddy John's Super CRV in a 26-foot enclosed with like 7 SV1000s. It's like the joke of when the Temu factory caught on fire. They lost tens of dollars worth of product. It's the same thing. We're going to show up with 10 bikes worth 20 grand and have a good time.
Listen, it's a brilliant idea. I absolutely know it's going to work, and I don't see why anybody didn't think of this before, right? I always thought the SV was a great bike, the 650 and the 1000, and you're right, it was underdeveloped, but it can still go like a scalded dog, right? I mean, it's still in the right hands. It's still a proper weapon. It is a tool that we use to go fast on. That's all it is, right?
Yeah,
you don't need all the bling bling and the ding ding or any of that. You just need a bike with 2 wheels that's properly maintained and proper body work, ghetto customs, and all that good stuff. And, bro, yeah, you can wing it. I love the whole idea of, I'm a big advocate and a big fan of cheap racing. If we have it, more people's willing to get in it, more people can actually afford to do it, therefore our sport grows too as well, right? What you're doing, my friend, absolutely brilliant. Cole King says he is guilty as charged. We all are, Cole. We all are, right? Dial, what's up, my dude? He says, my dude, Tuna and Chris, you my friend. And of course, another legend and a good buddy of mine, Jesse Davis. He says, do you need a fleet of XV 920s? I got you, right? And then
That's even worse. That's even worse. That's like the only option that's worse.
I love it, man. Jesse also said, put me in, coach. There you go.
Brandon, we plan on doing the West Coast round. So if he wants to lease a bike that's no better than that 920, bring it on.
Pamela says, what's your racing schedule for 2025?
That's my mom.
Hi, Mom. Thanks for watching.
Mom, I will forward you the racing schedule.
Mommy needs
My,
to know, boy. Don't sleep on that.
man, I've been racing since '09. My mom's made it to one race. She always says she's less scared of me racing bikes, but logistically, bike racing's all over the country. So she went to a bunch of my car races, though.
I love it, man. Your parents' support is I think means more to most people than anything, right? Um, it's the only it's I'm fortunate enough I still have both my parents around, but I have friends that don't, right? And my buddy told me so not too long ago that he was like, dude, I feel so alone. Like it's once I lost both my parents, I'm alone now, right? And he's happily married, got a beautiful wife and kids and all that. Right? It's just something super missing. So family again is the most important, and to have them behind you, it's fully support what you do is even better, right?
Right.
A lot of moms, like my mom, did not want me to ride at all. She's like, nope, absolutely not. Not gonna do it, right? And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm getting ready to show you. You get ready to learn today, baby, right? But yeah. I think that they love you so much, and they just want to see you happy. In their minds, they think of always the negative consequences of everything, because that's what parents do sometimes, right? You're a dad, I'm a dad, and we naturally have those thoughts sometimes because we want to protect our everything from not getting hurt at all, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Now I'm at the point. Now I'm at the point, Brian. I'm like, look, I wouldn't do that if I was you, because this is gonna happen. He's like, no, it's not, and I let him do it. Now I'm like, I told you, right? You're gonna learn today. So it's yeah, man, absolutely.
That's the way I work. It's like, yeah, I give you advice, but you're on your own after that. You make your decision.
Bro, yeah, you made it. Now you got to stick with it, right? Dylan says, Brian Mullins, when I get a chance to get involved with engineering and design, I'd love to help the boys go fast.
That the more the merrier. I talked with Dylan some, and he's got a website. I think it's kind of a big deal, and .com maybe, and he does a lot of. It seems like he does a lot of engineering development, and I think he's helping out a couple local racers, but haven't had a chance. I've been pretty busy with all this to talk about how we could work together, but I'm sure we can, and he's local, so that'd be great.
Yeah, that always helps. Dylan, put your website down, post it down below. I'll post it out so everybody can see it and they can hit you up and get some work done for sure. Yeah, dude, listen, Brian, dude, it's exciting. I can't, dude. I hope that means you have an opportunity to run into each other this season at some events for sure. What state are you based out of again?
I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
So I'm as far south as you can get in Ohio, damn near, basically Kentucky. One cool thing that has come. Well, there's a lot of cool things that have come out of this project. Which Andreas that said he's here for the SB content. He has one. We went in and he's got one of these SB 1000s. I think he's already registered for Daytona. So that's pretty damn cool, pretty ambitious. But I ended up with, we as a group, we ended up with two of John Ulrich's Moto ST SB 1000s. I think they're the only ones he had, from 20 years ago. And one of them we picked up in Arkansas, and one of them we picked up in Florida, which I haven't even picked up yet. It's over at Vinny's place. And I wrote him and I said, hey, man, I wrote John on Facebook. I said, hey, man, I think I have two bikes that were yours. If I'm following the story of how these people ended up with them and where they came from. And I sent him some pictures and he goes, oh, yeah, those are ours. I can tell by this, and we did that. And I'm like, holy shit, that's amazing. And so John is like, what rounds are you going to be at? I want to stop by and see the bikes and this and that. I'm like, how cool is that? These things that have been sleeping for 20 years have so much, history in them. And again, it's a throwaway bike. I bought that thing for like $2,500. So that, I think that's been really cool. And I talked with Mark Young some, and, him and Trey Beatty ran the Moto ST class on SB 1000. So I was trying to pick his brain, and I told him where we're at, and he's, basically like, you've done way more than we've ever done, so good job. And so it's been cool, kind of full circle with these things. And I picked up some of them, and even if someone doesn't, this isn't. I'm not doing this lease thing to make money. I'm doing it for inclusiveness. Like if someone can do a club race weekend, if someone can go do a Moto America weekend, like they can afford to lease this bike and go run and be part of it. And if they just want to be part of it, if they want to try to prove something, I will have another bike that is built equally as good as mine, and they could actually do pretty well. Obviously, you're not going to touch the top few guys, but you can do reasonably well considering all. But if someone's got an SV laying around, I'm happy. We're producing parts to turn these into hooligans, and I'd be happy to sell them some parts. Even if they want to do their own, I'd be happy to provide some advice. I think it would be hilarious if there were 10, 12 SVs on the grid, in modern times. I think it would be
awesome. Yeah.
It'd be ridiculous. So, and again, we're not out there to make a joke. Aside from the team name and having a good time, we're there to do our best and just have some fun.
I love it, man. I love it. And you're actually in this shop now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you want to let? There you go. Flip it around. Let's take a look. Love it. Now, is this one your personal one? Because that's that big Ram Air right there.
Yeah. That one. This one is actually not my personal one. I mean, I own it, but it's just one we're putting together right now. We don't have the engines ready. We've got a track day at Jennings in 2 weeks, and I don't think the engines are going to be ready for that either. So aside from the engines, I'm going to have 3 of these outfitted with the big air box, with the Ram air intake, full suspension, quick shifter, full tune, everything. Travis at Platinum Performance is doing all of our dyno tuning and using Woolwich to flash the ECUs. The 05 and up, you can flash the ECUs. The 03 and 4, you cannot. It's like a 16-bit ECU or something. So we'll be at Jennings with at least 3, maybe 4 of them. And just to test tune, see how they're going to do. But the big engines, I'm hoping maybe one of them will be done for Daytona. I really don't know. So I personally haven't registered for Daytona yet. I'm going to wait till the last minute and see how optimistic we are. But I've only ridden one of these one time, and it was at the Wira GNF back in October. And, no power commander, no quick shifter, no slipper clutch, no nothing. And I wasn't disappointed with my times. I finished well. But, my times weren't impressive. It was slower than my 650 super bike, to be honest. But that bike had a quick shifter and slipper and made 88 horsepower or something. So that's when I was like, all right, that was just setting the motion more that the bike has a base that we can work off of. So, but yeah, man, I've been out here in the garage more than I care to admit, working on these things to get them ready because the winter, we've had a really ice-covered, super cold winter so far. And now it's eased up, but there wasn't much else to do but bury yourself in the garage and wrench. So that's what I've been doing. And I actually pick up the last set of suspension from Jamie on Sunday. And then next week, we're going to make the trip up to Travis and get 3 or 4 of these dynoed, and we'll be ready for our track day at Jennings. And then once Jennings is over, then we set our sights on Daytona. I hope we can make it, but that's where we're at right now. So yeah, I'm in the garage.
I love it, man. So for those of you that are listening that has an SV1000, Brian, tell them your basic go-to mods that you would do to help the performance out on them.
Oh man, again, it's under development. So the bikes aren't terrible. You can make them pretty light. I mean, the engine is heavy, but you can lighten them up pretty good. I expect our bikes, the minimum weight limit's 373, I believe. And I think we'll get them down to like 378, maybe 380. Like we're going to be pretty close. But yeah, the SV1000, the suspension, I mean, you can't go fast if you can't turn, if you can't hold a line. So suspension for sure. And, poor Jamie, the DMR, I've sent that man shocks from GSXRs, from Kawasaki's, from whatever. And I'm like, hey, I need this to fit an SV. And he's like, no, all right. He'll change the shaft, change the body, the valving, the spring, everything, and he'll make it work because, he shares the mentality. It's like, you can make it work. So he's done all of our suspension since like 2015 or something. So like 10 years. And so suspension, and then, exhaust, the stock exhaust on these looks like it was ran over by a truck and then ran over again. And like, it looks like the exhaust looks like a hate crime victim. It's bad. It's the worst stock exhaust system I've ever seen in my life. So getting rid of the exhaust, getting, even a race system, like I said, even if you get a race system, the rear head pipe is still garbage. So we're going to be selling a pipe to do that. But what's awesome is if you build from an SV1000, I'm not kidding. I paid $500 for one of these bikes. I paid $350 for another one of these SVs. It was impounded. It had sat for however many years, but I drained the fuel, did an oil change, cleaned the air box, and it fired up and it ran fine because it's an SV, The bikes were never performance minded enough that they really hurt themselves, They're pretty mild mannered. And so with that, like Greg proved at Coda, if you just have a damn bike and you're a competent rider, like you can probably make the show. And Coda's a pretty technical track, man. I would love to race there. I never have. It's not on the Hooligans schedule this year, but it was impressive to see just the garbage that he was on and being able to make it. So it's prep it like you would prep any other bike. Just know that it's heavier and slower than you want it to be.
Are you guys going to be at VIR? Super Hooligans coming to VIR this year?
No, man. So the Super Hooligan schedule is Daytona, and then Road Atlanta, and then we go out to the West Coast to the Ridge, and then down to Laguna Seca, and then Mid Ohio. I think is September. It's like maybe it might even be August, but I think it's September. It's pretty early, and that closes out the Super Hooligan season. I guess they're just making room with the rest of the schedule, but 5 rounds, that's fine with me because I'm still going to do vintage days at Mid Ohio. I'm still going to do the GNF with Wira. I'm still going to do the opening endurance round with Wira at Roebling Road. So, 5 rounds is fine with me because I'm going to do 3 or 4 other rounds. And then my kids racing and all that. Like there's no downtime in this house.
I love it, man. I love it. So if I don't see it at Daytona, then I'll see it at Road Atlanta.
Yeah. We'll definitely be at Atlanta, even if I'm on a stock engine for sure there. I would hate to go to Daytona with a stock engine and really kind of stunt the outlook on these things, whether it's mentally or realistically, But maybe. I mean, Andreas is doing it, so maybe we will. I don't know. Don't know yet.
Well, I hope to see you there, my friend. I really do. I really, really do. Let's see. We got so Dylan Smith. This is his website, people. It's www.kindofabigdeal.com. Engineering and manufacturing resources, plus some paddock and pit support items. Thank you, Dylan. Eugene, my buddy Israel, I called him by his middle name. Israel, what's up, my man? He says, what sort of BHP is your personal bike maker? I'll be at Daytona for the 200. Could be interesting in adding Super Hooligans.
Oh, man.
There you go.
So right now, I don't really know. Realistically, these bikes stock, they claim 110 horsepower, but realistically, at the wheel, they're like 100, 103 maybe. So these and part of that is getting air into the bike. Like I said, the air box is too small factory. So with the big air box, that's going to be a huge increase. Flashing and tuning the ECU is going to be big. Getting that rear exhaust pipe on redesigned. It's got 1 radius now. Kevin's done an awesome job on that. So I expect these bikes, the better 2 that we're building, I'm expecting like 135 I would say realistically, we might be able to get a little more. I really don't know how this Ram Air is gonna wick the bike up. How it's gonna help or hurt. We're gonna try to do some testing on the dyno with CFM and forced air and see if we can talk to Andreas and get some calculations that he thinks we'll get, given realistic scientific calculations and the diameter and the velocity and whatnot. But yeah, we expect about 135 and maybe more. I guess it just really depends. We're still at the early stages of the engine building. I would say right now, the cheaper ones that we're going to have available for lease are probably going to be around 115, I would say. I would love to say more. I'm just trying to be realistic. And Daytona, I think last year on the grid, I think there were two SV1000s that made the show. I think CJ Cohen and Danny Dominguez, I believe they both made the show.
Yep.
So, if they can do it, we can do it. There's no reason not. And these bikes are vastly more developed than what they were on. I'm sure. I talked to CJ a little bit. We ended up buying one of Danny's bikes. So we have his SV1000 here. We know what he was riding, and ours are definitely going to be better. And then CJ, I sold him a couple parts. He's still racing his this coming year, this season. And I would venture to say ours are better than his. So that's the fairest assessment I can give. The good one's probably 135 right now. Stock engine one's probably 110. And it's putting you behind the bullet at Daytona, but what are you going to do? How you can rent it for $1,800 and give it a go. And worst case, if you don't qualify, that's what I was talking to a buddy. I'm like, man, if you don't qualify, you're on TV, you rode Daytona, you got your pro license, you're going to get 2 practice sessions, 2 qualifying sessions for your time, and you're going to be at Daytona. And then once you have your pro race license, you can go to all the races for free. Like you got a free ticket for all the other races. So it's a win-win-win.
Absolutely. Check, and check. There you go. Right. Chris Parrish says, we're shooting for 150. Don't lie. How badass would that be?
Man, I think what sucks is even, we chose these bikes, right? And I'm not going to argue they're throwaway bikes realistically. And the engine rules are blanket for liquid cooled bike versus air cooled bike. And so it's a liquid cooled bike. So we fall under the same engine build restrictions as the new Yamaha 900s, the Triumph 765s, the Ducatis and the other, the KTMs and all that are out there. So I would love to get 150, and I don't think we're gonna, but it would be really cool if we did. And anybody that wants to spend more money than I am spending is more than welcome to develop some more on the engine side. I will provide a bike, and you can build the shit out of it as much as you want, and we'll work together.
That's right. It's just got to be reliable. It's not a hand grenade going down the track, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you can't. And we're limited on fuel too. I think the best fuel we can run is the T4. So, you can build crazy compression, but if you're knocking and pre-detonating, it's not going to make any power. It's not going to last. So it kind of is what it is,
It is, man. It is. Go ahead,
I think Chris should ride one of these bikes in Mid-Ohio or Atlanta. I don't think the Twins are running Atlanta either.
Yeah. You know what? I have to look at that. I don't think they are, to be honest.
Think so.
Yeah, I don't think they are either. Yeah, I'm almost positive they're not. But listen, Brian, dude, this has been awesome. We're almost an hour into this podcast, and I feel like we just started scratching the surface of it, right?
Yeah, man.
So yeah, we'll definitely do a part 2. I actually got an appointment I got to go to here in a few. So all my other favorite part of the podcast, not my favorite, but I get to dig in your brain and we get to know Tuna as a real person with the personal questions. I'm gonna save that for part 2, but I'm gonna give you one and all our shout outs before we get off here. And just stay on with me for a few minutes to go ahead and schedule our next one. With all this talk about racing and upcoming season, and if you, Brian, had your own super hooligan class, bike team, right? And money was not an object. What's the one bike you would have besides the SV? And who are the two current riders that are racing in the series you would put on your machines?
Man, that's a good question. So if money were no object, oh man, I don't know. I've never thought of money not being an object ever in my life. So I would go what makes the most sense. I think even though I did not mesh with the bike, if a different rider were on it, I think the bike to have for super hooligans is the Triumph 765. And that's what Cole King's running. I mean, it's a good bike, man. It's a pretty good bike out of the box. It's easy enough to ride that you can run it. They're reliable, they're smooth, they're easy to ride. You can put all the trick electronics on it, and it's a good machine. It just was not a good machine for me, and that's probably what I'd have, a fleet of those. I mean, you can get, there's other bikes that are good. The KTM's good. I'm sure the Indian is good. I would not have a fucking Harley out there. That's a fact. That thing is a huge, fuck, the Pan America, Jesus Christ, man. Makes good power, but that's like the trickiest bike out there because it's a big old pile of shit and it's got special allocation. But, Harley's paying some money, so they let them run it. The Indian is super trick, but I don't know. It would probably be the Triumph. And riders, I would reach out to guys that I think are deserving, that are, I wouldn't even care if they won, man. I'd probably put Chris Parrish on one of them because Chris is, he's a regular dude. He's out here doing amazing stuff with what he's got, and he's fast as shit. I would probably dig up some kids that haven't raced, man, and fast kids from back in the day that haven't raced in a while. Maybe Drake Beecham. He was always super fast and realized road racing is going to bankrupt him and join the military. Kind of like Jace Heskew, he joined the military. Now he's back to racing. And then maybe maybe get some old heads out there, guys that I thought were crazy fast back in the day. And there's a lot of riders that don't have a ride right now because, shit's fucked up. And guys that are really deserving that I'm seeing that don't have a ride. And so I can't really think of who that would be right now, but I would, and again, the whole goal is to have fun. So I'd want to get people out there that I can bullshit with and that are going to wrench on their own stuff. That's the whole thought of money being no matter is wild. I would probably just buy more moderate bikes instead of having 3 super trick unobtainium bikes. I'd have like 20 okay ones. And then the whole team would finish, 6th through 15th. I don't know.
I love it, man. I love it. Joshua Combs says, I own a Pan Am and I would not race one.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying, man. I looked at those a lot while we were at the track. And there were a couple privateers on them, and I'm just thinking somebody had to have given it to them. Like, it had to have been a gift that, here, go race this, because holy shit, that thing looks terrible. But what we were trying to do early on, what my buddy John Nicholas was trying to do, the air-cooled engines are unlimited. You can do whatever the hell you want to them. And we had talked to some industry guys, and we had plans in place to build a forced air induction, so a supercharged Buell, the air oil cooled Buell, like an XB12, XB9. And it literally got to an engineering standpoint of there's no room to put the supercharger within that frame because it's the fuel tank. It's just huge. So then we're like, okay, well, we could do it on a framer, on an older, a Lightning or something. And then we looked at cost, and it was going to be stupid expensive. But I wish Roland Sands had an interview, and he's like, I don't know why people aren't pushing the open engines for the air-cooled bikes. That'd be something for Jesse Davis to look into. Put a supercharger on that 920, man. But it would be really cool to see some wild engine configurations out of those air-cooled bikes, but no one's done it. It probably just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, maybe from a cost standpoint too, as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, listen, Brian, this has been absolutely a proper mega time. Thank you so much. It's been an honor having you on the podcast. I'm gonna let you end it, but before I do, I got to give all my shout outs and thanks. I just want to say first and foremost, thanks to everybody that watches and likes this podcast. If you guys and girls have not, please go to my Spotify, iHeart, YouTube, all that good stuff. Hit that bell, please. It helps me out a lot. Big shout out to Next Level Financial, bikesandtrack.com, Chef Meats, TST Industry, clothingkings.co.uk, Superbike Supply, SFL Mini GP, South Florida and Jersey, RD Racing, and my buddy Jake March out there in PSB, Vet2 Track, Flying Eyes Optics, 64-degree Racing, Ghetto Customs, Carnes Performance, KYT Helmets America, K-Tech Suspension, Birch, Kendall Hikari, RTR, Ready to Race in North Carolina, Coleman Power Sports, McLeo Escapes, Track and Tour, Road Racing World. I need everybody to go to roadracingworld.com, go to the funds. Please donate to the air fence. It's absolutely imperative that we have it. Even if it's $5 or $1, trust me, we need it, because without the air fences, Brian ain't racing, we ain't doing track days, and yeah, we're not having fun. So big shout out to STG, Dripping Wet Graphics, Venom Undersuits, V121pro.com, which is my buddy out there, Mike Edwards. Mike Edwards. He's a rider coach. He's a legend, 6-time PSB champion. So he does coaching out there in the UK too. Build, Train, Race, right? One of the best programs, I think, in Moto America, especially for entry level racing. Absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you had missed this or caught it mid-pack or right here at the end, you can go to my YouTube channel and rewatch it. And tomorrow it'll be out Spotify, iHeart, and all that good stuff. So yeah, Brian, tell everybody where they can find you on social media, where they can sign up and rent his FD.
Oh man, you just gotta reach out to me on Facebook or email. I ain't gonna put my phone number out there, but yeah, just hit me up on Facebook. Brian L. Mullins, I believe, is Facebook, or obviously I'm on here. I'll comment on this podcast. Actually, since we've been doing this, I've gotten 2 messages from people inquiring, and I've already taken deposits on 2 bikes for 2 rounds. So if someone's serious about getting on them, hit me up, man. I'll build a couple more if we have to. But yeah, just hit me up on Facebook. That's the easiest way.
And if not, if you have a trouble, you don't answer, hit me up and I'll forward the message on to Brian and he will get back to you. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I hope the rest of your Friday and this weekend is as proper mega as you are, and that includes you too, Brian, for sure. And Brian, again, thank you so much for coming on here. It was an absolute honor, and I'm definitely looking forward to part 2. If you stay on with me for a second, we're going to go ahead and get that scheduled. And anything else you'd like to say to everybody part of the podcast?
No, that's it, man. Have a good time. Enjoy your weekend. Get on a motorcycle as soon as you can.
Yeah, that's right. And don't forget, in the gas, baby. Let's go. Anyway, we will see you guys later. All right, let me end this. I got a new outro.
Calling all two-wheel enthusiasts, get ready to rev up your earbuds with Pin the Gas Podcast, the ultimate motorcycle racing podcast, hosted by Chris Simcoe, one of our very own excellent leaders here in Roanoke, Virginia. With expert analysis, behind-the-scenes stories, and exclusive writer interviews, Pin the Gas Podcast delivers the adrenaline rush of the racetrack straight to your ears. Whether you're a diehard fan or a curious newcomer, you'll gain insights that will transform how you watch and understand motorcycle racing. On your favorite podcast app, join Simcoe as he takes you on a high-speed journey through the world of motorcycle racing. Pin the Gas Podcast.